Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, horror, I'm going to be talking about The Troop by Nick Cutter. Now, The Troop is one of those books that people seem to talk about a lot, or at least it's one I've seen lots of posts about on social media. And in fact, Amazon calls it TikTok's favourite horror novel, which I thought was a bit of a dubious honour, perhaps. I'm all about the booktube, but not about the book talk or whatever they call it. I have to say, I don't know about you guys, and maybe it's just because I'm old, but TikTok just gives me a headache. I have tried using it, and I just open it, as soon as you open the app up, it's just noise. It's terrible. I don't understand it at all. My attention span is clearly not short enough to enjoy TikTok. And if I was being incredibly mean-spirited, I would say that I'm not surprised that TikTok users like The Troop, because it seemed to me like the kind of book that you can read with a short attention span. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I love books that I don't have to pay a great deal of attention to, and this was one of them. I'm reading a Japanese mystery novel from the 70s at the moment, and it's blowing my mind because I have to keep remembering stuff, and I'm struggling with it a bit because of that. So I've got no problem with books that don't require your full attention. I think The Troop is definitely one, and I think that may be why it's so popular on TikTok. So anyway, what's it about? If you don't know already, it's about a troop of like venture scouts. So they're not like little kids, they're 16, 17-year-olds. I think there's 5 of them who go on a camping trip with their scoutmaster to an isolated, uninhabited island, which is sort of near the town that they live in, but across the lake from the town. What they don't know is that there's a guy who's been infected by a horrible mutant thing, and I won't go into too much detail as to what the thing is, but a guy's been infected with this horrible thing, which makes him ravenously hungry. And the book kind of opens with him being ravenously hungry, or a report of him being hungry anyway, where he's gone into a diner and ordered like 5 breakfasts and devoured them. Anyway, he turns up on the island. The scoutmaster, who is also the town doctor, decides he should try and look after this guy and save him, and as you would imagine, it all goes horribly wrong from there. So that's what it's about. What's it like? It's really horrible. So if you've read the Stephen King, or you've probably heard, even if you haven't read it, so in Danse Macabre, Stephen King talks about the 3 different stages of horror, which, if I remember rightly, are the purest form of horror is horror that terrifies you. Second down from that is horror that horrifies you, and if you can't achieve horrifying people, then you just gross them out. And I think The Troop is probably somewhere between grossing out and horrifying. So at times, so often, it's really gross. So there's some really disgusting descriptions of what happens to various characters in it. And it's just, I was reading it over breakfast one day, and I shouldn't have. But equally, there are some bits which are genuinely horrifying. So there are some bits where just by, the situation that the characters are in, and things like that, he makes, Nick Cutter makes the scene genuinely horrifying, and it really kind of gets under your skin rather than just being disgusting. One example of that would be, so for example, I think there's a scene where a character is trying to cut things out of himself with a penknife, and that's just like, it's not nice. So on that level, it really succeeds. What the other thing I think it does well is, so he intersperses the story, which is a very linear story of what happens to these scouts and their scoutmaster. He intersperses that with kind of news reports and kind of top secret files and things like that. So it's not between every chapter, but regularly you get like an interview after the fact with someone who is involved, and things like that, which really help to flesh out the backstory in such a way that you know just enough more than the characters that you can be more scared than they are about what's going to happen next. So that actually works really well, and I thought that was quite nicely done. What it lacks then, so quite a linear story, quite nice interspersing of backstory into it, really gross and, you know, horrifying. So as a, you know, purely, if its intention is purely to be a horror novel, it succeeds, it's good, yeah. But what it lacks is any sort of depth. So all of the characters are just really cliched. So in the like the scout troop, you get the kind of fat nerdy kid, you get the kind of bullish jock kind of guy, you get the creepy guy who's kind of a serial killer in waiting, and you get the kind of normal guy. So it's just a bit cliched, and I really felt I couldn't really connect with any of the characters, so I didn't really care that much about what was happening to them. Now, obviously, you don't need to connect with the characters in a horror novel, and I can think of plenty of horror novels that I would, you know, easily give 4 stars to, that are just pure, you know, balls out thrill rides of disgustingness and horror. And The Troop should be that, but it doesn't quite, for some reason for me, it didn't quite manage to achieve that. And I think maybe it's because some of the ideas just feel a bit obvious, and there's just a lack of variety maybe in the horror. But equally, it doesn't achieve being a, you know, a really good novel that you connect with, because the characters are kind of dull. And that got me thinking about, you know, so does a genre novel, so obviously this channel is crime, pulp, horror. So all of those are, and pulp's a bit of a broad church, but all of those are, you know, genres. And I've got no problem with genre fiction or genre movies just being about entertaining their audiences in the way you would expect to be entertained by that genre. So I'm fine with horror novels that are just really gross and fun. And I'm fine with, you know, crime novels that have just got a decent mystery in them and no depth apart from that. You know, pulp novels that are just tons of adventure. Yeah, like you know, like the Executioner books. There's definitely no depth to the Executioner books, but I really like them. And for some reason, The Troop didn't quite work in that way for me. And I'm not sure I can figure out why that is. And if you've read it and you share similar thoughts to me, do let me know in the comments what you think, because it's kind of nearly really good, but in the end it's just kind of okay. And I don't know if that's, you know, as I've said, the lack of connection with the characters. I don't know if it's something about the situations. You know, on paper, he does everything right. He's got some great horror stuff in there. It's quite exciting, you know, that it's well laid out plot-wise, but it just fell a little bit flat for me. It just didn't grip me in the way I expected to. And by the end, I was kind of like, yeah, let's just get it over with, Nick. I can't really be bothered to keep reading this. So it was a 3-star read for me, and there's some very good scenes in there. But if you're one of the people who love this, and there certainly do seem to be people who love it, and I've seen it, you know, certainly on lots of these are the horror books you should read recommendation type videos. If you're a person who loved it, do let me know why, because I don't know if I'm missing something, or if it's just, you know, sometimes as a reader, you just don't connect with the book in the same way that other people do. And I felt that was the case for me with this book. Anyway, I've got The Deep by Nick Cutter, one of his other books, somewhere. I think it's on one of the shelves back there, albeit I've got 2 rows of books on these shelves because I've got too many books. I think it's in the back row. So I'll definitely read that at some point, because as I say, there was a lot in here that was good. It just didn't live up to my expectations. So yeah, that's it. If you're a big fan of the book, I hope I haven't offended you by saying I didn't think it was that great. If you're a big fan of TikTok, I hope I haven't offended you by saying I think TikTok's for people with short attention spans. But that I think that's kind of its raison d'etre, isn't it? So anyway, that's my thoughts on The Troop. Let me know what you think. It was it felt like a bit of a rambly video today, but I've had a lot I wanted to say about the book and get off my chest. Oh, one last thing I forgot to say. Content warning. Obviously it's really gross, but if you are disturbed by cruelty to animals in particular, do not read this book. There is a ton of animal cruelty in it, and some of it's really gnarly and horrible. Yeah, so avoid if you don't like animal cruelty. Anyway, that's me. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you're safe, keep well, and I will speak to you again soon. Cheerio.